I'll let Leanne introduce herself here quickly. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about, and thanks for your patience. So good afternoon and welcome to the Impact Fund Visitability and Prevailing Wage Technical Assistance webinar. Visitability applies to all new construction projects unless Minnesota Housing approves a visitability waiver. Prevailing wage applies to certain new construction projects that meet certain requirements. Visitability and prevailing wage do not apply to acquisition, rehabilitation, resale, owner-occupied rehabilitation, or affordability gap. The purpose of this webinar is to provide you with best practices and options for meeting these requirements. Participants in this webinar are myself, Leanne McKenzie. I'm on the Impact Fund team, and Erica Arms, who is a staff architect in our multifamily division. First, we're going to discuss visitability, which is defined as designs that allow persons with mobility impairments to enter a residence and comfortably stay for a duration. We will then discuss prevailing wage briefly. Now I'm going to turn it over to Erica, and she will go over the visibility requirements.
Hello, everybody. And if you have questions during the visitability portion, feel free to type them in, and we'll get to them at the end of the visibility section. For visitability, there are 3 required elements for single-family homes that apply to visitability. A 32-inch clear opening doorways throughout the qualified dwelling unit, and that would be any space that you're going into dwell. It doesn't necessarily apply to closets, storage rooms, or auxiliary spaces, but any space you're going into dwell and stay. At least 1 no-step entrance into the home, and a half bath, or could be larger, on the main level. We've included just some entry examples of how people have solved for visitability. Some have kept the traditional stairway entrance and then paired it with the no-step entrance alongside it. Others have used the side of the home where there might be more distance to make up a transition from one height to another as their visitable entrance, or just a simple sidewalk into a portion of their home is all that's really needed for visitability. The benefits include, of course, wheelchair access for those that need it, but for elderly, young children, or anyone with an impairment, there are benefits to having visitability. Some of the designs we see have single family or townhome designs have front porches, and those certainly are a good solution to providing visitability in the no-step entrance. So we've included some of those examples. We do recognize that there are infill sites, and a lot of the times those might be in the city where there's an alleyway. The front door is not the only place you can have that no-step entrance. Through the backyard or the side is certainly another option. Excellent. And then we've got some diagrams here that just show that the side distance might provide more space to get to that no-step entrance, and that visually it can be very appealing and subtle, even at the front door. We have included a previous application, and it shows that typical designs have the first floor raised about 20 inches above grade. So the options for meeting visitability are to make that transition up to the standard design raised above grade, or to lower the first floor closer to grade. So we have a few examples of those details later on. The doorway can come into play for decking. Would suffice as a no-step entrance. The key to that detail is to make sure it's a swing door and not a sliding track door, because the track construction would prevent a visitable entrance. But as long as the threshold design has a half-inch slope trim or that the maximum height from one surface to the finished floor is 3/4 inch or less, you would meet the visitability no-step entrance. We have seen in some designs that are slab on grade where they have continued up the masonry foundation a course above finished floor just to provide some extra protection, and that has been just trimmed out on the inside. It's by no means required, but we do look to make sure that there is a durable material close to grade or sidewalk that would withstand weather. And I think those are just a few of the detailed examples we've seen. Next slide. All right. A lot of the single family homes we understand are built with either unfinished basements or finished basements. And the detail we have seen, I know that typically the first floor joists are supported on the foundation wall and they're usually raised above grade. To get it down to a visitable entrance, you can recess those into the foundation wall. We have just one example of what it would be right at that no-step entrance, and then if you, of course, took a different section cut away from that sidewalk, it would just be your typical at least 8 inches down from the first floor to have positive drainage away from the exterior wall. And then we have just another section detail where you have a more durable PVC type trim material close to grade, and that it's at least 6 inches down to grade. And then just another example of how you can shelter at the entrance to provide some protection from the weather. So hopefully it will be working through with contractors on different options with design to meet that no-step entrance, but hopefully those avenues can be explored pretty easily. If all of those front door, back door solutions are still challenging, we have seen some people satisfy that no-step entrance through a garage situation. As long as you could drive into the garage and get to a no-step entrance. A project that we had under construction that just slopes from the back of the garage down towards the front door of the overhead door to get positive drainage within the garage, and then the concrete floor is warped at the door that goes into the home. And then we'll get into waivers in a minute here, but we did include some sketches from a site in Duluth where the actual site is very steep, in which case possibly the lowest level isn't the level that makes sense for that no-step entrance. It could be up at the higher elevation, or again, we'll go over impracticality and waivers in a minute here for visitability. As far as the half bath on the main level, we realize in some situations it might be taking up some valuable space, so you can hopefully fit it as concisely as possible. Pocket doors are one solution we've seen in space-challenged layouts. The other is to maybe have a floating vanity that's open underneath. It's certainly not required, but it is give more space into the unit. I guess we have some questions coming in, so we'll get to those in just a minute. If you're going to apply for a visitability waiver, the conditions for waiving those would have to meet the following reasons: the no-step entrance, the site conditions that make the requirement impractical, or if the site and making that visitable reduces the affordability for the targeted population. For the 1/2 bath, if that reduces the affordability for the targeted population. Minnesota Housing cannot waive the 32-inch clear door opening requirement into the actual spaces within the unit. To request a waiver for visitability, you would need to provide the following: a letter explaining the visitability elements for which you are requesting a waiver and for which units on the development, how each requirement reduces the affordability for the targeted population. For the waiver of the no-step entrance element, an identification on the site and an explanation of how the site makes providing a no-step entrance impractical. So examples would be to provide architectural drawings or site surveys, preferably with topographic information and boundaries with building footprints so we can see some of the site challenges. Unless Minnesota Housing approves your waiver request, each new construction unit must contain all 3 visitable elements. For those multiple lot properties, the idea is to make the attempt at the majority of the sites to achieve a visitable home. So it is possible if there's a couple of sites on your multiple lot properties that are impractical, that you would just apply for the waivers on those particular sites. And the goal here is to let applicants know before final funding decisions are made, if possible, about their waiver requests. In some cases, if lots aren't identified yet, waiver decisions can't be made, and they can be made when those decisions are decided upon. And I think we've got quite a few questions, so I'll take a look and see what we have. If the house is 2 stories, do the second floor doors need to be 32 inches as well, or when only the first floor is visitable? So the actual state statute that is written says 32 inches clear doorways throughout the dwelling unit. So our legal department has said, based on the language in the state statute, that those 32-inch doorways are required. And again, it wouldn't necessarily be for those auxiliary spaces for closets, storage rooms, etc. But if you're going to go into the actual space, be it a bedroom or something that would be a dwelling area, yes, based on the language in the state statute, that's how it's read right now. Let's see, a question about the details at the base, whether or not those meet the FHA termite requirements. I guess we have seen at least in multifamily, we don't get to dig into too many of the actual details of single family yet, but we're certainly willing to take a look at those details. But we see basically at the baseline, we see covering the insulation, we see a number of materials and solutions that would be protection for that, but so far we haven't had that be an impediment. Can we get a waiver for the 32-inch doorways on the second floor due to the interpretation of state statute? Again, as of right now, our legal attorneys have said that it says throughout the dwelling unit. I would suggest if you're going to just submit that waiver, there would have to be a justification of why, other than it's just not something that works out for your floor plans. So I'm not sure how it would be evaluated by our legal team, but we would not discourage you if you feel like applying for a waiver. We'll take a look at it. But again, I'm not sure what we can do about the state statute at this point. Right. Let's see if we have some more questions. On some of the other technical assistant meetings we've done, we have recognized that there are some challenges for applicants who have a prescribed set of plans and we understand changing some of the engineering of it, or just the training of the construction trades can be a challenge. We're just going to stress that, we're working towards meeting this visitability requirement, and we're hoping to work with any applicants so that this can become an easier as everyone gets used to the requirement. I'm going to turn it over to Leanne, and feel free to keep typing in questions and we'll hit you at the end, and she's going to touch briefly on prevailing wage.
Thanks, Erica. Next, we'll go a little bit over prevailing wage. Prevailing wage requires minimum wages to be paid to certain types of work and classifications. Under certain circumstances, awards made through the Impact Fund may trigger state prevailing wage requirements under Minnesota Statute 116J.871. In broad terms, the statute applies to awards that meet the following conditions: new housing construction, not rehabilitation. A single entity receives from Minnesota Housing $200,000 or more of grant proceeds or $500,000 of loan proceeds. The statute excludes new housing construction in which the total financial assistance to a single project site is less than $100,000. While you should keep this in mind as you put together your application, at this point, nothing needs to be done on your part regarding prevailing wage for this application process. If we think prevailing wage applies to your proposed project, we will contact you. So really, this concludes the presentation on visitability and prevailing wage, and at this time we'll take any other questions you may have. In your application, new construction application workbook, the financial worksheet, there's a column for you to indicate costs that are associated with you incorporating visitability in your projects. So please be sure to include those in your applications. If the costs are going to be higher, we want to know that. We have a question. If we have a bid contacted regarding prevailing wage for 2018, should we not be concerned? We've heard that the Department of Labor is saying it applies to all projects regardless of the 100,000 exclusion. We are still waiting on guidance, so I would just say proceed as usual, and we'll get back to you. Okay. Any other questions? We'll certainly keep you informed on any new information that we received, and we hope to work with you. And please feel free to contact us if you have any questions or concerns during the RFP process. Thank you all and have a great day.